Hey, welcome back to another episode of Tech Talk. I'm your host, Jeff Hootselle. I'm the Chief Cloud Officer at AuditMax. If you guys have watched Tech Talk before, you know it's a conversation show we have with IT leaders from across the country that are doing some amazing things in all different areas of technology. We've always got great guests on the show, and today I'm happy to say we've got our first in-studio guest we've had for a while, so we're excited to have some human contact here. We've got Bernard Schmidt with the Jacksonville Transportation Authority join us today. So Bernard, thanks for joining the show.
Thank you for having me, Jeff. Happy to be here.
Yeah, but so all right, we'll have to figure out how to make eye contact with people and do this instead of a screen. But
yes, it's that kind of world.
But so JTA, a lot of people know about you guys from the work you do on the bridges and highways, and you do the mass transit systems. You know, but when it comes to technology, and we always talk about kind of new things, you guys are doing some interesting stuff in that world as well.
Yes, absolutely. I think JTA as a transportation authority is very forward-thinking, especially under the leadership of Mr. Nat Ford. And so I came on board about a year and a half, almost 2 years now, as the Vice President of Automation to really assist in this visionary project called the U2C, the Ultimate Urban Circulator, which is the JTA's vision of how we retrofit the existing Skyway to be used with autonomous vehicle, essentially creating an entire 10-mile network through the Jacksonville downtown core.
Yeah, so talk about that a little bit. So I think folks are familiar with the Skyway here in town, right, and kind of what that's done and how it works today. How is this going to be different from what's already in place?
Well, I mean, first of all, right now our current Skyway is an APM, an automated people mover, so essentially a train, kind of a monorail type system. And then the system is well over 30 years old. And just due to obsolescence, just due to where we're at with state of good repair, it just kind of makes sense to look at where we're at now with upgrading it or replacing it with new technology. And so many years ago, there was kind of a study with various stakeholders throughout Jacksonville that was conducted. And the folks said, not only we want to keep the Skyway, we want to expand it to what it was originally meant to be in terms of connectivity. And so at the time, there were a lot of new technologies that were emerging, and it was kind of the thought of, okay, let's move forward and do this and look at how we can actually leverage autonomous vehicles. Now, the benefit that we have with the Skyway is that the Skyway was one of 3 different APM type systems, very unique pilot systems in the United States, I believe, Miami, Detroit, and Jacksonville. And so our system was built originally to be used with a rubber tire vehicle. So what our thought in terms of converting it back to a roadway at elevation really returns that structure back to its fit, form, and function. And so that is really what's unique about the U2C in terms of the vision that it has, is how we're leveraging existing infrastructure.
That's really cool. So, people hear about autonomous vehicles, and there's a lot of different use cases, out there now from folks from Uber, and you see things that Tesla's doing, and so there's a lot of different, it's a widely used term, right? So, in the context of what you think that's going to mean to Jacksonville, what is that going to look like for somebody that lives in the city or is visiting the city when they start thinking about the potential of autonomous vehicles?
Yeah. So first, I think we're years away from seeing a bunch of vehicles driving around Jacksonville all by themselves. But I think what you will see in the next few years will be a more agile, smaller vehicles that really try to address this first and last mile type of problem. As you know, we operate 40-foot buses. We operate a variety of different things as part of our profile, from the ferry to trains, to even regional transportation, right? We service the 4 neighboring counties as well. And so the JTA plays in all the buckets, including what you said at the beginning, which is we also build roads and bridges. So years ago when kind of looking at how to upgrade the Skyway, as I mentioned before, was thought about, we applied for something called the Bill Grant, and the USDOT awarded Jacksonville the Bill Grant. And so some of that went to the city, but another portion of it went to the JTA to go ahead and implement this technology. So what you're going to see in probably the next 3 or 4 years, the thought is for us to launch on what we call a level 3 type platform, which is with an attendant or a driver. These vehicles do not have wheels, so I use the term loosely, but they do have a way for you to control it, either a joystick or a controller, but then very quickly transition to level 4, which is removal of that driver. But at the same time, all that control will be maintained. We will have a remote command and control facility where the vehicles we can take control of them even remotely.
So it's kind of that crawl, walk, run phase, get people comfortable with it and understand the environment.
Exactly.
So I'm curious, with everything that's happened with the pandemic and COVID, how has that affected you guys? Has that slowed things down? Has it changed? And you have a couple different projects you've worked on?
Yeah. Well, I mean, for our division and the JTA overall, I think has been blessed. I mean, we've been able to react in a multitude of ways to the pandemic. From an automation perspective, we stepped up to the plate and really started to think about, one, how could we do our part? And two, how can we leverage this technology? And so we had a really good working and existing relationship with the Mayo Clinic. We reached out to them, and then, the birth of our Mayo project was born. And so we partnered with Beep and Navia, which is an OEM, an AV shuttle manufacturer. And we were able to launch 4 shuttles on the Mayo Clinic campus that was exclusively dedicated to transporting COVID-19 test samples. We actually ran 2 services. We ran something called a BAP service as well, bone alkaline phosphatase, which is kind of a transport of some, I guess, a test that they do for all their cancer patients. Okay. But with the pandemic, there was less and less of that work happening. But the COVID-19 tent, which was on the far side of campus, was very active, as you can imagine. Sure. And we leverage our autonomous vehicles. And what was unique about that project, it is the first use case in the United States with these shuttles being used under level 4 automation, meaning there was no attendant on board. We actually implemented the remote command and control. We did not use a driver, and we were able to launch these vehicles fully autonomously on Mayo's campus to transport COVID-19 tests back and forth.
That's fantastic. So you're getting your use cases down, you're kind of expanding out, which is great.
And that was kind of the double banger, right? Getting 2 birds for 1 stone. We had a chance to really test out the use case. We had a chance to also, kind of feel really good about doing our part and helping with the pandemic, and allow Mayo Clinic to redeploy their manpower to other areas where they had need. And the JTA was able to step up and really do that, and we provided that service for 4 months straight.
Wow, that's terrific. So as you're thinking about kind of the public perception of autonomous vehicles, what do you think is the most misunderstood aspect of that? Or if you could get something across to people that are thinking about that world and what it means? Yeah,
I mean, I think rightfully so. I think there's always going to be some apprehension. It's safety. I think the concerns are cybersecurity. Can somebody take control of this remotely and just, drive it off the road? I think that's a big piece of it, and I think that's a big part of what excites us about what we do as well, what we did at Mayo Clinic and what we do day to day at the JTA, because the socialization of technology is huge. I really believe that the socialization and acceptance of this technology is actually going to come through public transit. And so the opportunity to do that Mayo project, the opportunity to do what we do in our test and learn program and using these vehicles, and actually, we take them around Jacksonville all the time. We take them to schools, we bring them to different locations just to get people to socialize with them. And the statistics speak for themselves. We find that most people that are even skeptical at first, after they've actually had 15, 20 minutes of taking a ride, getting on board, seeing the vehicles, touching the vehicle, smelling the vehicle, their perception changes.
Yeah, and they just understand the technology and how much is behind the scenes. And
exactly. I think the analogy I would use is it's kind of like, back in the day, elevator operators. How, you had to have kind of the attendant there. I think it was just more to make people feel like, okay, I'm in a box, and give them a little bit of safety. And then, now, I mean, I don't know of any place that you go to that you see kind of an elevator attendant. And so part of that is just kind of, we're going to go through a very similar process with this technology and getting people comfortable with it.
That's great. It's exciting stuff. It really is.
Yeah.
Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, we talk a lot about, IT leadership and people's experiences.
Yes.
And I'm always curious how people get into technology. You've got a pretty unique background in some of the areas you've been in. So talk a little about kind of what your journey's been like and how you've wound up in IT.
Yeah. It is an interesting journey for me. I'm an engineer by degree. I'm a chemical engineer by degree. Never worked as a chemical engineer. Worked, as you know, I started my work as a nuclear engineer, running nuclear reactors. So I was certified to run PWR and BWR, pressurized water reactors and boiler water reactors. I did that for a while. And then I actually transitioned from that to working for the U.S. government and building nuclear submarines. So kind of stayed in the same field.
Okay.
And then really loved that role. And then I transitioned to aerospace. And I would say that's really kind of where I spent the bulk of my time. I did almost 11 years in aerospace, working for United Technologies. They recently changed their name. But for Pratt & Whitney, if you've ever flown commercial aircraft, you either fly Pratt & Whitney, Rolls-Royce, or GE engines. And so I did a lot of aircraft engine maintenance, had an opportunity to do a variety of roles from materials to operations to engineering, and then became an executive there and actually took some roles overseas. So I spent 8 years overseas in the Middle East. And then I came back to the US via Amazon. That's where I landed in Jacksonville. And I was the leader who opened up the facility up by the airport, the large, what they call AR, Amazon Robotics Fulfillment Center. And then brought that from brick and mortar to operation, about a little over 3,000 employees. And what they call two peak seasons, so 2 holiday seasons of delivering packages. And then it was via Amazon that I got to make some great relationships and meet a lot of folks throughout Jacksonville. And of course, Jacksonville won the Bill Grant, the JTA won the Bill Grant, and I think the opportunity to stay in Jacksonville, the opportunity to do something where you can actually bring something brand new, this innovative, and I think under the leadership of Mr. Ford, he empowered it to just kind of give me a blank slate, right? And said, I need a leader to come in here and really, put the strategy in place and bring a team on board. And so I've been able to bring some additional folks from Amazon with me, and a couple other folks. We just hired a great automation engineer, a couple of directors under me, and so we've been really excited and get the ball rolling. So that's a little bit of the journey for me.
Yes.
But I'm just excited to be here.
It's a heck of a background, man. You're really passionate about technology. We've talked a number of times.
Oh yeah,
it always shines through.
Yeah.
So a last question I want to ask you. And this is, we get a lot of people watching it that are young. They're just starting their IT careers up.
Yeah.
So if you were going to go back and talk to kind of that smart, driven, person just coming out of college, thinking about a career in technology, and give them any advice, what would you say?
Well, I would say be persistent. I think you got to be resilient. It's not about getting it on the first try. You're gonna have fail a few times. And I think the advice that I have for young people is I think it's okay to broaden out. The one thing that I appreciate that I think benefits me in my ability to operate in this world is because I've had so many touch points in different different aspects and in different worlds itself, from really core technical engineering stuff to materials and supply chain to Amazon to aerospace and aviation, and so that broadens my perspective, and I think that really benefits a lot. The experience and a very broad perspective, I think, is really a differentiator for top talent.
That's great. Bernard, we're so glad to have you as part of the IT community here in town, and
yes.
All you've done with Amazon coming here in town, the stuff you guys are doing now, which is super exciting.
Yes.
If folks want to find out more about what you guys are doing at JTA or even connect with you, where's a good place for them to go?
Absolutely, go to the JTA website, jtafla.com. We also have a U2C website. You can, of course, find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, all the social media applications.
TikTok account's pretty strong.
No TikTok accounts, but certainly, I think we're accessible via all social media platforms and, of course, our website.
All right, awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us today, and thank you guys for tuning into the show. We look forward to catching you the next time.